There is a forest in the middle of Africa so dense, so layered, so alive with the business of killing and eating and surviving, that sunlight has not touched its floor in places for 10,000 years. Not because of cloud cover, not because of season, because the canopy above is so thick, so interlocked, so ferociously competed for by trees that have been growing for centuries, that the light simply cannot get through. And in that permanent twilight below, on a forest floor that is wet and dark and absolutely saturated with life in every direction, some of the most sophisticated predators on Earth have been perfecting their craft for millions of years. Not thousands, millions, and almost nobody talks about them. This is the Congo Basin, the second largest tropical rainforest on Earth, a wilderness so vast that you could fit the entire country of Western Europe inside it and still have forest left over. A place where the rivers are so wide and so deep and so powerful that they function as walls, separating populations of animals for so long that species on one side evolved differently from species on the other, producing a biodiversity so extreme that scientists are still cataloging it. Still finding things, still discovering creatures that have been living in this forest since before Rome was a city and finding them for the first time. Subscribe right now if you want to understand what the natural world actually looks like at its most extreme, at its most uncompromising, at its most magnificent. Not the edited version, not the 10-second clip, the real thing. Let's go. The Congo Basin covers an area of roughly 3.3 million square kilometers across 6 countries: the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, Cameroon, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea, with the majority of the forest, the true dark heart of it, sitting within the DRC. The Congo River, which drains this entire basin, is the deepest river on Earth. Depths exceeding 220 meters have been recorded in certain sections of the river, which means that parts of the Congo River are deeper than most of the world's coastal ocean shelves. It moves 3 cubic kilometers of water into the Atlantic Ocean every single day. Every single day. That is not a seasonal peak flow, that is the average. The river is so powerful that it has carved its own topography, shaped its own climate, and created ecological conditions along its banks and within its tributaries that exist nowhere else on Earth. And the forest that the river drains is a machine. That is the most useful word I can give you for what the Congo Basin forest actually is, though it fails in important ways the same way all simple words fail when you try to apply them to things of enormous complexity. It is a machine for converting rainfall into oxygen, a machine for cycling nutrients through soil so thin and so leached by tropical rainfall that without the forest's constant input it would be nearly sterile. A machine for producing food and shelter and cover and death, all simultaneously, all in the same square meter of ground, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in heat and humidity that most humans find genuinely overwhelming within 20 minutes of stepping off an air-conditioned vehicle. The temperature on the forest floor of the Congo Basin rarely drops below 20 degrees Celsius and regularly sits above 30. The humidity is almost always above 80% and frequently above 90. This means that the forest floor is essentially a warm, wet incubator, and what it incubates is life in quantities and varieties that the human mind is not really built to process. There are more species of tree in 1 hectare of Congo rainforest than in all of temperate Europe combined. There are insects that have not yet been given names by science. There are fungi that dissolve the dead and return them to the soil in days. There are root systems so vast and so interconnected that what appears to be individual trees are in some cases a single organism expressed through multiple trunks across hundreds of square meters of ground. And in this incubator, the predators are not an addition to the system. They are the system. They are the mechanism by which the system regulates itself, by which the sick are separated from the healthy, by which population explosions in any one species are checked before they can destabilize the whole structure, by which nutrients move from body to body and form to form in the endless cycling of energy that keeps a forest this size alive. Remove the predators from the Congo Basin and you do not have a forest anymore. You have a collapsing structure in the process of eating itself. So let us talk about them. Let us go through this forest level by level, because that is actually how the Congo rainforest works, not as a flat plane of uniform habitat but as a vertical structure of overlapping layers, each layer with its own light conditions and temperature and humidity and food sources, and therefore its own collection of specialists who have evolved over millions of years to exploit exactly those conditions and no others. The predators of the Congo are sorted by altitude as much as by anything else. Start at the canopy, the very top of the forest, where the tallest trees break into the sunlight and their branches spread into an interlocking platform 60 to 80 meters above the ground, sometimes higher. This is the most competitive real estate in the Congo Basin. Every square meter of canopy access is fought over by trees that have been growing toward it for decades, by epiphytes that hitchhike on the trunks to get there, by animals that have evolved specifically to exploit the resources that exist only at this altitude, the fruits and seeds and insects and nesting sites that are available here and nowhere else in the forest. The crowned eagle lives here, and the crowned eagle is one of those animals that forces you to revise your understanding of what a bird actually is and what it is capable of. Stephanotis coronatus is its scientific name, and it is the most powerful eagle in Africa, by most measures the most powerful eagle on Earth when you account for the relationship between its body size and the prey it routinely kills. This is not a large bird by the standards of some raptors. Its wingspan reaches about 1.8 meters. It weighs somewhere between 3 and 5 kilograms depending on sex, with females significantly larger than males in the pattern typical of raptors. But the crowned eagle kills animals that weigh 4 or 5 times its own body weight, not occasionally. Regularly, it is a specialist in exactly this kind of kill. The primary prey of the crowned eagle in the Congo basin is monkeys. And when I say monkeys, I want you to understand that I mean adult monkeys. Large monkeys, monkeys that fight back and have their own weapons, and are themselves extremely strong and agile, and completely aware that the eagle exists and what it means when it appears. The crowned eagle hunts adult colobus monkeys and adult mangabes and juveniles of even larger primates, and it does this by using the canopy itself as a weapon. It perches in the dense upper canopy where its remarkable cryptic plumage, the mottled brown and white and rufous pattern on its underside, breaks up its silhouette against the dappled light coming through the leaves. It watches. It is an extraordinarily patient hunter, sitting motionless for periods that would be difficult for most predators, reading the movements of the monkey troops below it in the canopy with eyes so acute that the resolution of its vision is estimated to be several times sharper than human visual acuity. And then it moves. And when a crowned eagle moves in a hunting stoop through the canopy, it is moving so fast and with such precision that by the time any alarm call from another animal reaches the ears of the target, the eagle is already there. The talons of the crowned eagle are its killing tools, and they are extraordinary. The rear talon, the hallux, can reach lengths of 6 to 7 centimeters, longer than a lion's claw, and the grip strength of those talons has been estimated to be sufficient to crush the skull of a monkey or small antelope in a single contraction of the foot. The eagle does not need to use its beak to kill. The talons are enough. They hit with the force of a closing steel trap, and the prey's brain registers nothing after the moment of contact, because the moment of contact is the end. What makes the crowned eagle's presence in the Congo forest truly remarkable is not just its individual capability, but what that capability means for the behavior of every other intelligent animal in the forest that knows it exists. And almost everything intelligent in the canopy knows it exists. The various monkey species of the Congo. The colobus and the mangabes and the ganans have developed alarm call systems specifically for the crowned eagle that are distinct from their alarm calls for ground predators. A ground predator alarm call triggers one set of behaviors. An eagle alarm call triggers a completely different set. The monkeys drop from the canopy into the denser midstory where the eagle cannot maneuver as easily. They cluster together. They mob the eagle if they can locate it while it is still perched. They have, in other words, developed a specific cultural and behavioral response to this specific predator, a response that is learned and transmitted and refined over generations of predator-prey interaction. The eagle has shaped monkey cognition. The monkey cognition has in turn shaped eagle hunting strategy. This is coevolution in real time, expressed through behavior rather than just through genetics. And it has been happening in this forest for so long that both the eagle and its prey have become extraordinarily sophisticated in their respective arts. But the crowned eagle is not the only aerial predator working this canopy. The Congo serpent eagle, smaller and more specialized, hunts snakes and lizards in the mid-canopy with a short-winged agility designed for pursuit through dense vegetation. The long-crested eagle and the African hawk eagle work different layers of the same vertical space, each exploiting slightly different prey and slightly different hunting techniques, producing a guild of aerial predators that between them put pressure on almost every size class of prey in the middle and upper forest, from insects all the way up to medium-sized mammals. The sky above the Congo forest is not empty space, it is occupied territory. Now come down, leave the canopy and descend through the midstory, that layer of smaller trees and palms and climbing plants and epiphytes that fills the space between the forest floor and the canopy above. This is the most structurally complex part of the forest, the layer with the greatest variety of surfaces and substrates, of horizontal branches and vertical trunks and hanging lianas and the stems of giant herbaceous plants and the curtains of moss and fern that drape themselves over everything in the perpetual humidity. And this is where the great apes live. And where the great apes live, the forest's entire dynamics change. The chimpanzee is a predator. This is a fact that took the scientific community decades to fully absorb after Jane Goodall first documented it at GOM in the 1960s because it contradicted the existing understanding of what chimpanzees were. They are our closest living relatives, sharing approximately 98.7% of their DNA with humans, and the discovery that they hunted and ate meat, that they organized coordinated hunts, that they used tools, that they had cultural practices that varied between populations, and that some of those cultural practices involved the planned and collaborative killing of other animals, required a fundamental revision of the boundary that had been assumed to exist between human nature and the nature of other primates. The chimpanzees of the Congo Basin, and there are multiple subspecies across the forest with somewhat different behaviors and social structures, hunt in ways that display a level of strategic intelligence that is genuinely startling. A hunting party, typically males, will locate a troop of colobus monkeys or red-tailed monkeys in the canopy. And then they plan, not in a vague general sense. They actually plan, in a way that involves role assignment and anticipation of the prey's likely escape routes and coordinated positioning of hunters to cut off those routes. Some individuals will drive the monkey troop, others will position themselves ahead of the direction of likely escape. One or two will serve as the primary catchers, the fastest and most agile hunters who will make the actual contact. And they execute the plan with a fluidity and responsiveness to changing circumstances that indicates not just instinct but something that looks very much like tactical thinking. The success rate of chimpanzee hunting parties in the Congo is high enough that meat is a significant nutritional component of their diet in many populations, not just a rare opportunistic catch. Regular, planned, successful predation on other primates, and the meat is shared not equally but according to a social logic of reciprocity and alliance that mirrors the kind of economic and social exchange that we see in human hunter-gatherer societies. The individual who makes the kill often retains the choicest portion. Status and hunting ability are linked. Sharing meat creates social bonds and obligations. The hunt is not just nutrition, it is politics. But there is something even more disturbing about chimpanzee predation in the Congo, something that goes beyond hunting other species. Chimpanzees in certain populations regularly engage in what researchers call lethal intergroup aggression, which is a scientific way of saying that neighboring groups of chimpanzees attack each other, sometimes killing adult males from rival groups and occasionally killing and eating infants. This is not a pathological behavior. It is regular and appears to be related to territorial expansion and resource competition. It means that the social world of Congo chimpanzees is not a peaceable primate society. It is a world of alliances and enemies, of territorial boundaries patrolled and contested, of violence that serves strategic purposes in a competition for resources that has been going on in this forest since before the species was the species. The other great ape of the Congo is the bonobo, and the bonobo is in many ways the most extraordinary animal in the forest precisely because of how different it is from the chimpanzee despite being its closest relative. Bonobos are found exclusively in the DRC, south of the Congo River, and that river is the reason they exist as a separate species, having been isolated from the chimpanzee populations to the north long enough to evolve a dramatically different social organization. Bonobo society is matriarchal. Female alliances are the power structure of the group, and sexual behavior in bonobos has been repurposed from its purely reproductive function into a social tool that manages tension and maintains group cohesion in a way that is startlingly different from the male-dominant, conflict-prone society of their chimpanzee relatives. But do not make the mistake of thinking that bonobos are gentle or without predatory capability. Bonobos do hunt. They are less systematic about it than chimpanzees, less coordinated, less focused on meat as a regular part of their diet, but they will kill and eat small prey including other primates when the opportunity presents itself. The difference is in the social meaning of the hunt rather than in the capability. For chimpanzees, the hunt is embedded in a social structure of male status and alliance. For bonobos, it is more opportunistic, more individual, less central to the social drama of the group. But the killing capability is there because they are apes. And being an ape means being intelligent, strong, socially complex, and capable of violence in a way that most animals are not. Now come all the way down, leave the mid-story and descend to the forest floor. And the forest floor of the Congo Basin is a different world entirely from the canopy and mid-story above it. Down here the light is dim, filtered through 60 or 70 meters of leaf and branch and vine. The air is still. The humidity is highest here, close to the wet soil, and the smell is extraordinary, deep and complex and slightly sweet in the way of decomposition, which is not unpleasant but is insistent, the smell of things breaking down constantly into the nutrient base that feeds everything above. The floor is not the barren leaf-littered floor of popular imagination. It is a dense tangle of low plants, fungi, fallen logs in various stages of decay, the buttressed roots of enormous trees that spread across the ground like the walls of a maze, creating a landscape at ground level that is full of barriers and hiding places and sudden dead ends. And the leopard owns this floor, or believes it does, which in practical terms amounts to the same thing. The African leopard is the most widely distributed large predator on the continent, found from the Atlas Mountains of Morocco to the Cape of South Africa, from the dry savannas of East Africa to the tropical forests of the Congo, but it is in the Congo basin that the leopard reaches perhaps the fullest expression of what it is. Because the Congo gives the leopard everything it needs: dense cover for ambush, a diversity of prey that ranges from small rodents to large forest antelope, trees for caching kills, and the essential gift of invisibility. A leopard on an open savanna is visible from kilometers away. A leopard in the Congo forest is invisible at 3 meters. The forest leopards of the Congo are, on average, slightly smaller than their savanna counterparts, an adaptation to a habitat where large prey is less abundant and where maneuverability through dense vegetation matters more than the raw power needed to drag a wildebeest. But smaller is a relative term. A large male Congo leopard still weighs 60 to 70 kilograms, still carries the same explosive muscular power that allows a leopard to drag prey significantly heavier than itself up into a tree, still has the same extraordinary sensory equipment. The eyes of a leopard are calibrated for low light in a way that is almost beyond human comprehension. In conditions where a human being can barely see their own hand in front of their face, a leopard sees clearly enough to place each paw silently on specific patches of ground as it closes on prey that is completely unaware of its approach. The retinal structure of a leopard's eye has a higher density of rod cells than most mammals, giving it light sensitivity estimated at roughly 7 times that of a human eye. In the permanent twilight of the Congo forest floor, this is not an advantage. It is a superpower. The hunting technique of the Congo leopard is patience made lethal. It does not chase, not as a first resort. It approaches in a stalk so slow and so controlled that each movement takes minutes rather than seconds, the body held low to the ground, the feet placed with a precision that eliminates sound on a forest floor full of dry leaves and snapping twigs. It reads wind direction constantly, moving into or across the wind so that its scent does not travel ahead of it. It reads the behavior of its prey, learning the patterns of movement and the moments of inattention that create an opening. It can follow a target for hours, waiting for that opening, and when the opening comes, it covers the final distance in a burst of acceleration so sudden and so powerful that prey animals often die before they have fully registered that something happened. The preferred prey of the Congo floor leopard includes forest duiker, small antelope that browse in the undergrowth and are themselves extraordinarily cryptic and cautious, the various forest pigs including the giant forest hog and the river hog, both formidable animals in their own right, and a wide range of primates. The leopard is the primary check on several primate populations in the Congo, and its presence has shaped the behavior of every primate species that shares its range. The specific alarm calls that vervets and mangabeys and colobus monkeys give for leopards are distinct from their eagle calls, as we noted, and the behavioral response is different too, moving up into the canopy rather than down into the dense midstory that they use when the threat is from above. Different predators, different strategies, different behaviors. The cognitive load of being a prey animal in the Congo forest is genuinely extraordinary. But the leopard is not the apex predator of the Congo forest floor in every situation. There are encounters on that floor that even a large leopard will avoid, situations and animals in the face of which the leopard's calculation of risk versus reward comes down clearly on the side of discretion. And the most significant of these is not another large mammal. It is a small one, or rather, millions of small ones moving together. Driver ants? Dorylus driver ants, called Saifu in Swahili, are perhaps the most terrifying predators in the Congo basin when you properly account for what they can collectively achieve. A single driver ant colony can contain 20 million individuals, all of them uniquely among social insects, functionally blind, navigating entirely by chemical signals, entirely by the trails of pheromones laid by their sisters, entirely by touch and smell in the darkness of their underground galleries and the chaos of their raids. The soldiers of a driver ant colony carry mandibles proportionally so large and so powerful that they have been used historically by forest peoples as emergency sutures for wounds. The ant induced to bite across the edges of a gash in the skin, and then the body twisted off, leaving the locked mandibles in place as a living stitch. That is the bite strength we're talking about. A driver ant raid does not move silently or slowly. It is audible as it advances across the forest floor, a collective rustling, a rising sound like static electricity magnified, accompanied by a mass chemical alarm signal that every animal in the forest with the neurological complexity to receive it understands immediately as existential threat. Large mammals flee a driver ant raid. Not because any individual ant is dangerous to an elephant or a buffalo, but because 20 million simultaneous bites in every crevice and orifice of a large animal's body will eventually overwhelm any animal's capacity to manage the pain and the physical damage. There are documented cases of tethered animals and injured animals that could not flee a raid dying from driver ant predation. The ants are indiscriminate. They go into burrows and root cavities and hollow logs and kill everything inside. They crawl up the legs of trees and strip the insects and lizards and small mammals that shelter in the bark. In the 24 to 48 hours that a driver ant column occupies an area of the Congo forest floor, it is the dominant force in that ecosystem by such an overwhelming margin that calling anything else in the vicinity a predator seems almost ironic. And the animals of the Congo have evolved responses to them accordingly. Certain army ant birds, the antbirds and ant thrushes and ant pittas that are among the most specialized of the Congo forest's many specialized species, follow driver ant raids and feed on the insects and small animals that flee ahead of the column's advance. They are not brave, they are strategic. They have learned to exploit the ants as a hunting tool, letting the ants do the work of flushing prey from cover, and then taking the flushed prey as it emerges in panic. The driver ant raid thus becomes not just a predatory event, but an ecological process that reorganizes the energy distribution of an entire section of forest floor on a timescale of hours. Now I want to take you to the water, because the Congo's predators are not only on land, not only in the trees and the undergrowth and the columns of marching insects on the forest floor. They are in the water too, and the water of the Congo basin is so extensive, so varied, so full of its own darkness and its own particular forms of violence, that it constitutes an entire separate predatory ecosystem running through the center of the forest. The Congo River and its tributaries form the most species-rich river system in Africa and one of the most diverse on Earth, with more than 700 species of fish recorded and new species still being described from scientific surveys. The depth and power of the main river, particularly in the lower Congo where the river narrows between canyon walls and produces some of the most violent rapids and hydraulic features in the world. The Nga Rapids and the broader Congo Canyon system has isolated fish populations in specific sections of the river for millions of years, allowing speciation to occur in the same way that island geography allows it in terrestrial systems. Fish in pools separated from the main channel by rapids have evolved in isolation into forms found nowhere else in the river, nowhere else on Earth. The Goliath tigerfish is the apex predator of the Congo River system, and it earns that title in a way that commands genuine respect. Hydrocinus goliath can reach lengths of 1.5 meters and weights of 50 kilograms, making it one of the largest purely freshwater predatory fish in the world. But size alone does not define it. The Goliath tigerfish is built on a principle of pure offensive capability that very few freshwater fish anywhere in the world match. The teeth are its defining feature, large, interlocking, backward curved fangs of a design optimized for gripping prey that is trying to escape in 3 dimensions through moving water. The teeth interlock when the jaw closes in a way that makes extraction by the prey essentially impossible. The jaw is massively muscled. The bite force is sufficient to cut through a standard fishing wire, and has been documented cutting through the steel traces used by sport fishermen who were not expecting to need anything stronger. The Goliath tigerfish hunts by sight and by the lateral line system, the system of mechanoreceptors running along the sides of a fish's body that detects pressure changes and water movement. In the turbulent, often murky water of the Congo system, the lateral line is perhaps more important than vision in locating prey, because it works equally well in darkness and in sediment-laden water where visual range may be reduced to centimeters. The tigerfish is known to be extremely aggressive, attacking prey in coordinated feeding frenzies when a school of smaller fish is encountered, and there are credible accounts from fishermen and researchers of Goliath tigerfish attacking animals far larger than themselves when those animals are in the water. The combination of speed, the fish is an extremely powerful swimmer, and bite force, and what appears to be an extremely low threshold for initiating attack, makes the Goliath tigerfish a predator that everything else in the Congo River system has to account for. But the river holds something else, something that has been in freshwater systems of Central Africa for so long that it has essentially no natural enemies in that environment, and that is the Nile crocodile. Crocodylus niloticus is present in the Congo system and its tributaries, and in the slower-moving sections of the river and in the oxbow lakes and wetlands that border it. It is the dominant predator in a way that shapes the behavior of every animal, land or water, that comes to the river's edge. The Nile crocodile of the Congo basin reaches sizes that are, frankly, hard to believe if you have never seen a very large crocodile in person. Adult males regularly exceed 4 meters. Exceptional individuals have been reliably measured at 5 meters and weights exceeding 1,000 kilograms. At those dimensions, the crocodile is capable of taking any prey that approaches the water's edge, and I mean any prey, including large forest buffalo, including forest elephant calves, including adult humans. The hunting method of the Nile crocodile is one of the most studied ambush techniques in the animal kingdom, and it is remarkable for several reasons. The crocodile is capable of remaining motionless in the water for periods exceeding an hour, with only its eyes and the ridge of its back above the surface, in a posture that can be extremely difficult to distinguish from a floating log in water that contains actual floating logs, which the Congo River always does. It reads the behavior of animals at the water's edge with patience and intelligence. It knows the patterns. It knows where animals come to drink and at what times and in what manner. It positions itself upstream of a drinking point and drifts down slowly, using the current to approach without the muscular movement that would create pressure wave warnings detectable by prey animals. The strike itself is among the fastest movements made by any large reptile. From stillness to full commitment takes less than a second for a large Nile crocodile. The initial bite is not designed to kill. It is designed to grip, to prevent escape, and then the crocodile uses its body, its extraordinary muscular power, to drag the prey into the water where the crocodile's advantages become overwhelming. A large mammal that is pulled into the river by a large crocodile is in an environment where it cannot breathe, cannot run, cannot use its strength in the same way it would on land, and where the crocodile can apply the death roll, a spinning rotation of the entire body used to tear pieces from large prey that cannot be swallowed whole. The death roll has been calculated to produce torques that can dismember a large animal within seconds. It is one of the most mechanically powerful actions performed by any living animal. The crocodile's presence at the river's edge is not a peripheral feature of the Congo ecosystem. It is a defining one. The patterns of wildlife movement, where animals drink and when how close they approach to the water, the caution or panic that accompanies any large water crossing, all of this is structured around the knowledge, deep in the behavioral genetics of every prey species in the Congo, that the water is the crocodile's domain and entry into it carries consequences. The crocodile does not simply kill prey. It shapes the entire spatial behavior of the ecosystem around every water source it inhabits. Now I want to talk about something that most predator narratives skip over entirely, because it does not fit the template of the large, impressive animal making a dramatic kill. I want to talk about the forest's chemical predators, about the plants and fungi and microscopic organisms that are also, in the most fundamental sense, predators in the Congo forest, killing and consuming other living things with a sophistication that makes the leopard's stalk look almost blunt by comparison. The cordyceps fungi of the Congo forest are perhaps the most viscerally disturbing predators in the ecosystem when you understand what they actually do. There are multiple species of Ophiocordyceps and related genera present in the Congo basin, each one specialized to infect a specific host species, typically an insect, and each one executing a strategy for reproduction that requires it to manipulate the behavior of that host before killing it. The most studied of these relationships involves carpenter ants, but the Congo forest has its own suite of these parasitic fungi working on its own insect populations. The spore of the fungus lands on an insect host and germinates, penetrating the exoskeleton and entering the body cavity. The fungal threads spread through the host's body, consuming non-essential tissues first, preserving the vital organs long enough for the host to continue functioning. And then, over a period of days, the fungus begins to produce chemical compounds that affect the host's nervous system and alter its behavior, causing it to climb to a specific height above the forest floor, to clamp its mandibles onto a specific type of substrate, to die at a location that is optimal for the fungus's spore dispersal. The fungus has, in other words, hijacked the brain of its host and is using that hijacked brain to position its own reproductive structure as effectively as possible. The host does not experience this as being controlled. It is not capable of experiencing it as anything. But from the outside, watching an ant climb to a specific height, grip a specific leaf, and die in a posture that perfectly exposes the fruiting body of the fungus growing from its head to the passing air currents below, what you are watching is a predator